Hello, I'm FKX Toycat, and the truth is you can start a brand new Minecraft world every single week if you want to, but if you want to continue playing the same Minecraft world, it really helps if you switch things up literally every few days or so. I've spent the last 3 weeks working on my ice project. It's getting a little bit better every single day, right? But I feel like the best way to stay motivated on a project is to move off and to do something else instead, and that's what we're doing today, because let's head all the way across the Nether. And believe me, it is a very long pathway we have to head through to get to the other side of my world. Because today I want to leave behind my project of icy stuff in the Nether, which I'm still enjoying and is still going some good places, to instead work on something else which is very important to me, and that is farming in the overworld. Man, this flatland gets the weirdest of things to spawn. There's a pillager, and some wandering llamas, and a wandering trader, all spawned here at the same moment, it seems. But yeah, today we're focusing on farming, and when you think farming, you probably think, oh yeah, super big towers and stuff. This is how I do most of the farming in this world, as you can see. But the truth is, today we're working on a much smaller scale of farm, but an important type of small scale farm. And I'll just admit right now that there's going to be some form of analogy between, like, hey, things spreading very quickly, you know, in the world right now, the fact that in Minecraft you can spread very quickly from having a pretty small scale farm, you know, using these same resources, to having a much bigger one, because look how many potatoes we got from our potato. There is exponential growth that comes with this, and exponential growth is something that's hard for people to wrap their head around, but it's something I wanted to talk about today, because it is a very important thing happening in the world right now, not just in terms of farming, in fact, very much the opposite terms of farming, something that we don't want, because you know what people want? Food. What do people not want? Lots of deaths and things along those lines. Let's talk a little bit about the world and stuff in today's video, mixed in with the Minecraft, because that's what we do every single Monday on this channel, if you haven't caught on already. And if you have, then yeah, this episode will be a little bit different, but it's something that's been on my mind, and this is what the Let's Play's here for, to talk about the big forts and stuff, and play some Minecraft. So if you want a podcast, you can see it that way, and if you want to see me play Minecraft every week and see the progress of my world, then good news, we've made some good progress since last week. Oh god, I really am about to do the unthinkable. I'm about to harvest beetroot. Oh my god, beetroot came to, you know, Minecraft Bedrock like years ago, and its uses were pretty much close to zero the entire time, and then it came to Java and to console, and it's like, huh, I guess this technically exists. But now we are finally going to be farming some beetroot, because I do genuinely need it. Why do I need beetroot all these years later? It's a weird question, but one that actually does have a valid answer. But let's fly over to my village and find out, because once we've replanted these crops, we need to go to my big village, the you know, the one that started as a fascist state and is now slowly recovering from that. Because, yeah, this is my Minecraft village. As you can see, it's very much filled up with lots of different things. The mass beds over here, you know, the houses over here. It's a very full village, and that's why I dug a giant hole in this village, and that's why I have these kind of peaky holes after that, because I figured we could take this village to the next level by making it 2 layers tall. When you build walls around a village, it does stop things getting into your village, but it also limits the space that you have, because you're limited by your walls. I mean, you can only defend so much, right? And this is kind of a fun thing that we've run into with this world, but my fun solution to this, and I think it's actually a pretty useful solution, because you want the villagers on the top layer, and then you want you exclusively to go down to the bottom layer and hope that no villagers follow you down here, which so far none have. But basically, we're going to be using this as an opportunity to create more space, mostly for things like farming. So my plan today is simple. I'm going to be mining a bunch of space under this village, and I'm going to grow some crops, and those crops are going to grow at an exponential rate, which I just feel like is a great kind of preface and a great thing to be doing while we talk about some things that I, you know, like very important and essential this week. A lot of people have been asking me, and although, you know, on one level, just a dude, it is something that people kind of appreciate, because when, you know, when it comes to any issue in the world, a lot of people use every single issue to advance their thoughts, their opinions, and, you know, to some extent this is inevitable, but one of the things, you know, that personally is just always in my head is like, what is the actual situation? I really value knowing what something is over believing that it's something else so I can advance some more position, because, you know, the truth is the world is a very complex place. Things are happening in very confusing ways all the time, and understanding the world can be difficult, and that is something, I guess I try my hardest to do all the time. And in case none of that makes any sense to you, how about we just jump instead to what have I been up to this past week? And wow, funnily enough, I've been inside most of this past week. Have you been enjoying that? I have been streaming pretty much every single day, so like my days have kind of changed structure a lot, which I would say, you know, on some level is like kind of a bad thing, but for the most part, like, I've been really enjoying streaming. I've been interacting more with the internet, like there's a type of you know, interaction with subscribers that I really enjoy via live streams, and it seems as though people are enjoying them based on the amount of support I'm getting, both in terms of how many people are showing up, but also a lot of people are choosing to financially support the streams, which is really nice on that level, I'd say. By the way, I'm doing a bit of coordinate mapping, so I'm checking the coordinates right over here, because this is as low down as I want to go below ground. This is minus 1251, and then we check on the other side too. This is something that's important when you have a fixed space to build in, like when you're building underground. It can be tricky to know what's what, because the underground's all the same, you know, hashtag we need some cave biomes. But most importantly, it's important to know that we have minus 1184 to minus 1251 as our building space, so we can build precisely within that, and we can have our bottom layer perfectly line up with our top layer. So that's what we're going to be doing today, right now. Go this way till we hit minus 1184, and then the other way till we hit minus 1251. I mean, along the way, we seem to be tearing up the pathway for a village, and, you know, that's a problem we can deal with later. But yeah, for the most part, this is how our underground's going to work. It's going to be perfectly matched up with the overground, so that we can have our village underground be the exact same size, just kind of cool and underground or whatever, because that's kind of part of the point of this. Like, if you make it an entirely different size, then what is the point of any of this, right? Although I guess we could actually use these, you know, inside-outside things as the actual basis. So we'll go down to a minus 1180, and I guess on the other side we'll go up to 1255, that would be our actual dead-end limits on both sides. And yeah, that would be a much nicer system in my opinion. It's funny because right here you can see there's a gravel pathway from the original village, you know, generated all those years ago, that I just kind of like, you know, built around to turn into my, you know, walls and stuff. This is back when we needed doors to breed villagers. It's kind of nostalgic seeing all of this, honestly. Kind of cool, kind of beautiful. And also, I just realized this is a great opportunity to get sand, which I do desperately need for so many reasons in this world. So, you know, we get some nice little benefits while working on a project we already kind of wanted to. Which is one of the great things about working on a world long term. Like, there are so many just small benefits that only rear their head. Like, oh yeah, working on one project will give you benefits towards another project that seems totally unrelated right now, but will become related eventually, because every time you move a block in Minecraft, you get the block to use later, which is such a simple premise, it's such a simple concept that you don't think about when you're just thinking about your one project, but boy does it come in handy so many times, more often than you might figure. And I just want to kind of point it out as like, yeah, cool thing about a long-term world is you're not just removing blocks, you're not just adding blocks, you know, for one reason or the other. You can actively just be doing what you want, and it will help you out down the line, and I like that personally. What I also like is the feeling that every single time you add any project to your world, even if you mess up, even if it's not the greatest thing you've ever done, you're building onto this like kind of continuous, you know, story that you have. Because, you know, life is this long story where every action you take moves you closer towards some outcome. Is it a good outcome? Is it a bad outcome? That depends on the actions. That depends on the individual person, the situation in case. But like it's, you know, life is a story being woven by your actions, and Minecraft is kind of the same. Minecraft is a story which is changing over time based on how you, you know, choose to play the game, based on what you choose to add to your world. Do you want to have a world where there are no builds, but exclusively you're just living off the land? Do you want to have a world where exclusively there are no mobs and there's no end, etc.? You're just, you know, building stuff because that's what you care most about? You can do that in Minecraft, and I think that's beautiful. By the way, every single time we wake up and go to sleep today, I want to take advantage of this, and I want to trade with villagers, trying to get their melon trades going, and obviously, villagers like this one, who need to get up to the melon level, we're going to sell our beetroot as we go along, and that is how beetroot relates to villagers, but also relates to current global situation you can't name in videos. So yeah, I'm looking forward, you know, to getting some village work done while also doing some mining. That's the cool thing about village projects. You can get these long-term, like, you know, trading kind of things done at the same time that you work on something kind of big for the village. That is why building around a village is just such a fun thing. It's like, it's got RPG mechanics almost built into it, because again, the more village stuff you sell, the more emeralds you get. The more emeralds you get, the more silly stuff like enchanted diamond pickaxes you can buy, which is almost like overpowered the amount and the levels which you can buy them at, but that's a story for another day. For now, let's just keep taking advantage of it, shall we? At the end of this video, I'll be showing you how many emeralds we've accrued just while working on something, as well as how many resources we picked up. Because again, it's the sort of thing that makes you realize that like just a small time investment here and there really does add up when you're working in ways that stack efficiency, and that's always an important lesson. But let's go back down to the mines. Let's start you're continuing to work on a long corridor that will eventually become part of our beetroot farm, and indeed our farms for other things, because you notice we got seeds for everything right there. Anyway, though, I have really been enjoying my last week inside, which is a, you know, great thing to be at. I feel like some people who, you know, really went outside all the time, not because they necessarily wanted to, but on some level because they're like, I have to, this is the only way to socially recharge. This must suck if you are an extrovert, if you are literally someone who has to be outside, you know, because a lot of people still have that, you know, caveman gene inside of us where it's like, must be outside. If not outside, they're not feeling good. I will get cabin fever after some amount of time inside, but yeah, being inside has not been like the biggest sacrifice I've made. I'll be real with you right now, and I've been having a particularly great week inside. I've done a little bit more cooking-based stuff than perhaps I would otherwise. I've, been playing a lot more games, which seems weird, because, like, as a YouTuber, you're like, wait, don't you play games all the time? No, the truth is, playing games all the time is a little bit of an exaggeration of what exactly goes down here. The truth is, as far as like what does an actual day look like, there's a lot of like planning, worky, calling it worky is weird in Minecraft, but like there's a lot of stuff that like doesn't quite translate directly into games. So I've been having a lot of like free time for games, as well as YouTube time for games, which has been great. I've been really enjoying it. Animal Crossing's been out, Warzone came out over a week ago, and just like it's been a great time for games. I feel like I've gone like back in time with my lifestyle, because at one point in time this was how I lived, and then I tried to like get more outdoorsy activities in my life, and because like, oh yeah, it's really bad for you to be in time all the time, because like food and then like playing games being your two big hobbies, probably bad for you in the long run. So now the advice is kind of flipped as like, the best thing you can do health-wise is to stay inside, play video games, and order pizza. And it's like, I've been waiting for the day to, for my services to be called for, Mr. Government, and I'm glad that finally they have. But yeah, so it's there's a little bit of lightheartedness going from this. But long story, this is, to actually not make a lighthearted thing, this is a very serious situation, right? The world is under the grips of something which is going to kill tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of people. And talking about it is something I wanted to do because you're gonna hear about this from a lot of like just I am inconvenienced perspectives, and that is totally a valid one. Like people are going to be very inconvenienced, and that sucks. We shouldn't inconvenience people unduly, right? In fact, that's a very big point that I have. But this is like a thing of like big pandemic levels. You're going to hear people like, just signaling that like, oh yeah, we need to stop this killing people, but no one really has a full picture of what's going on. Keep that in mind before we say anything further, because yeah, kind of like how, our crops today are going to grow from just having a couple of them right now to all, like we've got like enough space to grow, 10 beetroot here, to all of a sudden, during the course of the episode, it's going to hop. And then all of a sudden we're gonna have way more room for beetroot to grow, and yeah, like this. And this is isn't something to scare you, me like, hey, it's going out of control, and might kill us all. Because even the very worst case scenario is like it kills a very significant number of people, but not us all, not the entire collapse of society. Don't worry, that's not a real thing to be feared. I want to mention. I know that's like the least scary message ever. Like, don't worry, society won't entirely collapse. But I want to say, my kind of piece here about the fact that even even though we can't really measure it, the truth is it's just like having a real grip on the seriousness of something is hard when you don't know what something really is. When your understanding of that thing is changing literally day by day, you can't talk about it in the macro sense of how to deal with it in that way. So let's talk about instead the kind of other end of this situation, because we are living in a world of changing parameters in terms of how humans react. The one thing we can measure and we can say with absolute certainty is the way humans are reacting to the current situation is changing. If you'd have said like 3 weeks ago, everyone would be, in certain countries forced to, like with, literal force, laws and, legal systems forcing people to stay inside, even if against their will. You wouldn't have believed that, but yeah, that is the situation we've changed into in just a few short weeks. And as a result of that, what I'm really saying is that we've seen a very rapid change in the situation. And the human response to anything is really the most interesting thing to me about history. I mean, you can look at so many things in history about like viral history and about all these sorts of things, but what history really comes down to, as much as we might like to believe that we're really trying to catalogue the way things existed before us, is we can catalogue human behavior very, very well. We can see how humans have responded to previous situations in the world, and we can catalogue the current by looking at it in those same terms. How do humans react over, certain events? And the human reaction has been severe. Again, we can't talk about what the current situation will resolve itself and be like. Will it be fine? Will it be forgotten about? Etc. Etc. We can say we can't say when it will be over. We can't say about specifics because when it comes to disease, most of us aren't experts. But what people do know at least something about is how humans react, and people, humanity has been reacting very strongly. I mean, people say, oh yeah, it's just the flu, get over it. But like, I mean, do you remember how last year the flu shut down every single sports league and also caused a major stock market crash? Oh yeah, I remember that too, because that's totally what the flu did do last year. That's just facts, right? There's no refuting those. But long story short, like we're in a weird time in terms of how humans are responding to this, because all of a sudden, like, you and the people etc., are being asked to do things that you wouldn't have been asked to do, even a very short amount of time ago. And the reason I bring that up is because what makes me feel kind of unstable about this whole situation is the fact that people tend to react to very temporary situations in very permanent ways. You know, you can use this as like a good or a bad thing. Like, hey, you know, we reacted to World War II, the worst war the world had ever seen, that was tragic on so many levels, by trying our very best to set up the world system so that that wouldn't happen again. And we haven't had a global catastrophe anything near World War II, right? You know, you can see it on that lens, which I think is an optimistic and happy, you know, way to see things. Or you can see things and say that, oh yeah, humans react to temporary, you know, problems with permanent solutions, with things like, you know, isn't that how people characterize suicide, right? It's a temporary problem, depression, whatever else, that people react to by permanently you know, offing their self, permanently removing their ability to live ever again. And yeah, this is a thing we do as people. The reason we have all the laws we have right now, even though the world might not make sense if you think about it as now being 0.0, like if we started humanity from scratch, there are so many things we wouldn't do the way we do them, but instead we do them because of scars and experiences from our past. That is how we learn as individual humans. I mean, I'm sure I don't need to tell you, but it also seems to be, if nothing else, how we learn as a, you know, species, how our big collective human organizations of governments and you know, people and any form of you know, large bodies seem to learn from things. People learn from things and they change their behaviors accordingly, for the most part. There are some things people never seem to learn from, like, hey, you know, there's a stock market collapse because a lot of companies just didn't figure it was important to have cash around for the next big you know, crash. Figured, you know what, we'll just ask politely for someone else to give us the money. That seems to be a thing that's happening in some businesses. Like, obviously there are some types of organizations that don't remember, that don't keep the past in mind, but this remembering the past is an important thing to remember, because when it comes to other huge big events, the thing itself was kind of small, and I'm gonna end up minimizing something that someone cares strongly about. But think about, say, you know, actually, I'll take a attack in my own country. The 7/7 bombings. There was a big terror attack in the UK on the 7th of the 7th of 2005. I'm not mistaken. A lot of you know, like public transport in London was targeted with bombs, and a lot of people did die. As a result of that, we upped some you know, surveillance measures, and as a result of a few people who died in some, again, more tragic, quite recent you know, like terrorist stabbings. There's a lot of things and vehicle accidents in Europe. A lot of places have set up like these permanent bollards and like ugly kind of things to stop vehicles getting into certain places. But when you think about like the grand scheme, again, like this is always tragic to say, because human individual tragedies are the things we react to. Even, you know, like the death of one man is a you know, tragedy. The death of a million is a statistic. This is why people remember, you know, the 3,000 killed, let's say 9/11, more than people remember the, you know, the 100 million who died from communism. Or even if you just take one famine, like the 8 million people, Ukrainians, who died in a particular famine in Ukraine. Some of it's to do with locality, like, yes, if you are American or you live in the Western world, you're closer to Americans than you are to Ukrainians. As sad as, you know, that is to say. That shouldn't be how we think about humans, but to some extent it is. But a larger part of that is the fact that, like, yeah, you know, when, you know, like a small number of people die, when it's a fixed thing with a very clear consequence, it's easy to target that consequence. When you're targeting an economic system, or when you're targeting a much more complex thing, it just turns into a statistic that you remember as like, that's a thing. No one has an emotional outburst. And to some extent, these emotional things we have as humans, again, the emotional decision to kill yourself, is how so many of, you know, humanity's perhaps greatest minds have just gone. You know, like, there's so many famous examples, quite literally actually famous, you know, people who have killed themselves, but also so many people who weren't famous yet, who weren't, you know, like, you know, in situations where they could be at their best yet, who just killed themselves in their prime, right? This is the real tragedy. This is why, if you are considering doing it, people say, don't do it, you know? Admittedly, some people, you know, who should, you know, some people who, you know, think about killing themselves do go on to be, like, I don't know, the worst in society. What are we saying the worst is today? Like, is it going to be, you know, let's say child molesters. Like, some of those people are going to do the worst things you can imagine in the world, but also, a lot of those people are going to go on to be the best. The reason that you should be alive is because, statistically speaking, you're going to do great things that you can't do if you're dead. The reason, you know, that it's so hard to, like, target something with no easy to nail. Oh, we're gonna have to destroy these doors if we want to destroy this area, aren't we? But the reason that you should stay, you know, the reason that we've got to be careful about you know, like overreaction to things, emotionally speaking, is because when you make you know, logical decisions based on emotion, you're not going to make the perfect decision. And that's why what really scares me about the current crisis is, you know, right now it's a disease that's happening that we are taking our best steps to mitigate, right? But what's happening at the same time is lots of temporary measures, very clearly temporary. These are all emergency you know, powers. They're just for the emergency that we're in right now for realsies, even though the bill, you know, can be extended for as long as, you know, it takes, as long as an emergency is deemed to be having, you know, happening. But basically, like, a lot of temporary things are happening. Like, for instance, phones are being tracked, at least, you know, in the UK and in Israel and Singapore. A lot of countries are tracking the phones of their people. Why are they doing this? Well, we've got to see how close people get to each other, you know, for viral reasons and stuff. But, like, the data does go to the government, and, like, I mean, if it can be used coincidentally to stop people doing bad things, then that's really great too. But, like, the number of, like, you know, small little things that are happening, like a lot of competition law is being suspended as like, oh yeah, you know, like people shouldn't be competing with each other, they should be delivering things to the people. But it's like, well, I mean, wasn't that the point of competition in the first place? Lots of things that, you know, lots of very temporary things are happening right now, and those temporary things are perhaps the thing that humanity will remember much longer. Any you know, any permanent impact from, you know, any big event that changes the world are not going to be remembered in the things themselves, but in the response to those things. This is why, if you look at the Spanish flu pandemic, which most people, you know, like if you're into big like diseases, you might know the Spanish flu. If you're not, then you might realize it's been forgotten. And that is like, even that is after, like, you know, the recent the fact that recently people have been kind of digging into it, learning more about it. The truth is, many of the... Oh, wow, we apparently... Beetroot does not grow in the dark. Who would have figured? Many of the things that... many of the, you know, like, situations from history, you don't remember the things themselves. You know, even though the event itself is what you learn about, but the impact that it has on humanity is the impact that follows. The people, for instance, I don't know, like Abraham Lincoln was shot in the head, right? That was a tragedy. But the creation of the Secret Service, I mean, like, it was created before, but it was mostly for, like, money reasons, not protecting the president. That is a big thing, and that is why the president spends so much and has, like, such excessive security today, because, like, three or four presidents have been killed, and, like, a bunch more have been attempted. A lot of them have been assassinated in attempt form, at least. That seems to be true, at least. And, yeah, so, like, I don't know, you can take it pretty much any instance in history, and you realize that the event itself is an easy thing to latch onto. It's an easy thing to look at, but the more complex thing happening on the surface are the changes that go alongside it. And, that is why, right now, I've been, like, really, you know, kind of strange feeling, because right now, for the first time in, like, you know, like, since modern borders began, really, like, because the world hasn't had, if you don't know, the world hasn't had borders for most of history. Like, the concept of a nation state is actually pretty new. Like, the idea that you live in a country has always existed on some form, but in reality, most people, you know, served a lord, and that lord served a thing that vaguely was like a country. The idea of, like, borders between nations is really, like, last 100-ish years, and you know, like, you could argue 200. Even the concept of a country is not much older than 200 years, because the and that sounds like baloney. That sounds like made up stuff. But again, you please do the deep dive if you don't believe me. When people say crazy things, I fact check them. I expect you to do the same to me. And if you come to different conclusions, you know, that's great. Then I'm the one talking crazy, right? That's the important thing about anything that I say. I think when anyone says anything, it's important to check and to confirm, because it's pretty easy to say things that sound true, but what's much harder is you know, saying things that verifiably are true after you Google them, and or use search engine of your choice, or look it up in an encyclopedia. I mean, that's a thing you can technically still do. No one ever does it, which you know, kind of suspicious, right? You notice how there's no encyclopedias laying around? Maybe a big encyclopedia is trying to get us. No, this sounds a bit conspiracy fearing on some level, and I want to make sure that's not. I want to make it very clear, not the intent of this video, because what the intent of this video really kind of is just you know, the life lesson that can be taken from the current situation in the world. Right now, what's happening is you know, like, we are facing a situation, some level of crisis on, you know, some level of severity. which will vary depending on who you're asking, what situation. And that's why I'm trying to avoid making too many judgments, because it's like, truth is, people tend to pick their own emotional... Somehow this has turned into a political issue, which means instead of people looking at it with rational eyes, they're looking at it through eyes of, like trying to make their side win. Some people want this to be a big crisis because it makes their guy, or like makes the other guy look bad. Some people want it to be, like really small so their guy looks good. This is a horrific lens to view something like this through, and that is why I'm trying to avoid things on that level. But what I do want to talk about is the kind of human lesson you can take from this. That is, when people ask you for something, especially something quite big, it is always important, and they say it's only temporarily, always be very clear about what the terms of that deal are. This is I guess, again, super important thing to do, as a person, but especially we as a people should be very clear to do this in lots and lots of situations, because the truth is, if something is just for a bit, but with no, real fixed end date, then the truth is, what is, a bit defined as in that, particular circumstance? You don't really know. And this is why, because what's happening right now is the same thing that's been happening every time we've seen a terror event, is the kind of consolidation of, powers away from people, to the hands of, whatever, whatever you want to believe it is. The governments of the countries, the intergovernmental organizations, but whatever is happening there, your like phone data, your everything like that is slowly going to be, this is a great auspice to have whatever form of like great powers. Like being able to force people to stay inside for a great cause is, like everyone should be doing it. You should be doing it anyway. But being able to force people to stay indoors is something that makes you really say, that is a great power that really you wouldn't have expected we'd be able to use during peacetime. But now here it is. It's happening anyway. And the reason I'm saying that is because during every other war that we've had to, go through crazy measures like rationing, for instance, that is, that's something like you might have forgotten about if you don't. I don't know how big history is or what parts of history you learn about and what parts of the world, but the idea that like, oh yeah, even if you have the money to buy something, you can't because everyone can only buy X amount of food, right? But it is a measure used to protect the people, from all sorts of things, make sure people can be fed. It's a logical measure during the times itself. But, rationing didn't end in the UK till much after, the war that it came in for. And as a result, like all of the, insults that you might hear about the UK, etc., kind of stem from that one point. Similarly, if you take, I don't know, what's happening right now is like, we're doing something interesting because if you compare this to a war. For the first time in history, we are, looking, people, how a few weeks ago I mentioned how people always say that, someone died for your right to vote. Someone died for your freedoms, so make sure you use them. This is something that is just said all the time, like everywhere. I'm sure someone said it to you. I have no doubt that is a thing that has happened, at some point. So someone said to you, like, you need to do X thing because people died for that right. And this is historically how war has kind of gone. But what's happening now is people died, for your, we in every single situation in history, we've traded, lives, we've traded, this number of people in exchange for the freedom. But for the first time, maybe this is a selfishness thing. Maybe this is this is us stepping up and all the things we've done before are wrong. For the first time, we're now trading, freedom. We're trading in a lot of this, stuff in so many different ways that's going to be trading a lot of countries in exchange for lives. We are going to save lives by exchanging those freedoms. People staying indoors forcibly, if that stops some number of people going out, because there's a lot of people just disobeying common sense and doing things that are harmful to themselves and to others. On some level it's great because, they are going to, we're now going to have a better system for all. But also that is us directly one-to-one trading in, something we had, our freedoms in exchange for some lives. And it's interesting that for the first time in history, this is the trade-off we've started to make. In the 21st century at least, we have now decided that freedom is less than the, less than whatever number of lives or whatever. And that interests me on some great level because, I don't entirely disagree. I do think that, some vague notion, whatever political concept, means nothing when you're starving, means nothing when you're hungry, means nothing when any of these situations. Because, yeah, the number one thing, the number one factor, regardless of what anyone says, is always going to be how am I doing, how are the people I care about doing. Everything else is just a secondary, just a way to serve that same point. But it is very interesting that we now exist in a new and very different time from before. And I hope that everything turns out okay. I hope this is like some weird ramblings of a crazy person. But I think it's important for everyone to think about right now how things go back to normal, how to get the world back to normal afterwards. Everything, like every single piece of focus we see from everyone ever is on how to make things better. A lot of people go on social media and signal about how great they are at helping the current situation, but also we need to focus on how we're going to fix the situation that has resulted as a result of our fixing this situation, And that's a weird, three-dimensional thought to think about, I guess. How are we going to fix something, but then how are we going to fix the things that fixing that thing caused? And the truth is, it's a tricky thing to think about. It won't be talked about very much because it's much catchier to talk about the current situation than the response to the current situation and the response to the current situation. But these are the things you should be thinking about. These are the things we should all be thinking about on some level. And I guess that's what I'm trying to say right here, is that when any action happens, the thing itself is not what's remembered. The reactions to that are the things that stick around for longer. This is why so many historic events that you think you should know about, you don't. Because if they didn't cause a great chain reaction, then their relevance to you as a person, it's nice that they existed, but it's not a huge thing. This is why a lot of people, tend to claim that, we ignore certain bits of history, their favorite bit, and we focus on whatever other important bit. For instance, if you live in the US, you learn about, the secession from, the UK, but you don't learn about the people who were there before that, which is, something. I think it's an important part of the tale that is weird that you don't even start there or really mention it too much. But also you can see why the birth of a nation, the very concept of something existing, you can see why that does become an important thing to talk about, because oh yeah, that is the humans who did one small thing, who were just oh yeah, we want slightly more rights, no taxes, etc., etc., and that led to the birth of the nation, which is currently, by whatever metric, one of the most, powerful in the world. It's all these things happen because of accidents in response to other actions. Most people doing these things don't know what a big deal they're causing. I think I would say, yeah, everyone who is in history either underestimates or overestimates their own importance. Like John Wilkes Booth, the guy who killed Lincoln. I know his name because I watched a video in the last, few hours or days. The truth is, he didn't have much of an impact. He was the guy who made assassinations, I guess, a big problem, and a lot of restrictions have been placed because of that. Oh, I forgot I need to trade my pumpkins with this guy over here. That was a serious mistake. What I'm really trying to say with all of this video is that the impacts of humans on history always is slightly different than we anticipate it to be. You can overestimate, you can underestimate your importance, and a lot of people truly are. There's very few people who are going to have a true grasp on where they stand in the overall perspective of the world, because as the world is changing, the world is consisting of all people's thoughts that you can't know, you can't control, you can't have in mind, at all times. And updating and thinking about that is hard. The current situation we're in is very tragic and will be solved. If anyone tries to panic you and say it won't ever be over, you should panic buy and you should do all these sorts of tragic things. No, it shouldn't. You should still do all sorts of good things that you can. Especially now, any form of good service you can do to help lessen current pandemic is a very important thing to do. I think that is something that goes without saying. But if you think about this as being a defining endpoint for humanity, or a lot of people are saying really, what this is an indictment of X, Y, Z, and this is going to lead to all these sorts of things. The truth is if you're trying to define history in the moment, it's hard to do. That's why I hope that I'm wrong about my thoughts about where this is going, because I have to only imagine that we're not gonna make this mistake, right? We're totally gonna look at this through logical eyes as a species, but the current response so far has not led me to that conclusion. One of the things that is very important in anything in life is to remember that in the future, the things that seem like they are unthinkably forgettable now are actually going to be forgotten about. And that seems weird to say about something that is killing a lot of people every single day. That seems weird to say about all these giant things. But if you can't build a story from something, if you can't build a nation or whatever else from a thing, then generally speaking, that thing doesn't become so huge. I just realized that melons need to grow onto dirt, and that's why all of this farm isn't going anywhere. I don't know how I didn't think about that one just now. But yeah, we're growing our melon farms to get significantly more emeralds. While we do so, we've got a nice little beetroot, a nice little potato farm going. We've got over a stack of emeralds so far this episode, and as well as getting a stack of emeralds, we've also ended up with this chest full of ingredients, which we can now use for any future project. It's a lot of cobblestone, so furnaces, but sand we can smelt into glass, or we can use it to drain oceans, some andesite, some granite. We've got lots of different ingredients, and that's the cool thing about having a long-term world. That's the cool thing about having a long-term view of anything, is the temporary shocks are always the things that seem the biggest. There's lots of things in the moment that are super, super terrifying and worthy of your attention. But if you try to think long-term about things, you'll have a better time. Not only because you'll be less scared and panicked on literally a 100% of the time basis, but also, hopefully, it's the sort of thing that can help you to realize that, like, hey, things happen, things are scary, but that's okay. You know, just because things are scary, it doesn't mean they're not okay. And I hope that today's video is a reminder of that. A weird reminder that went a little bit circular, that went all over the place, but hopefully it ends up with that key message ringing true here, that like, oops, with that key message, sticking in, that like, yeah, things always seem weird in the moment. Things seem like it's the biggest thing in the moment, and lots of people will want to amplify that as your worldview. Some things will stick around forever, and a lot of things will seem like, oh yeah, we cared about that? How odd. And that is where you should hope things end up. And that is where I personally am hoping a lot of things end up. But maybe you disagree. Maybe you think that's a dumb opinion. Let me know in the comments down below. That rhymed, how beautiful. Let me know in those comments down below. We have precisely 3 pumpkin seeds, which is perfect to do these 3 blocks right here. And then, I guess, 1 more potato over there. Yeah, we are going to, I guess get some dirt down here, get some more work in the farms, because this is my kind of secondary project. When I'm bored with the main project of, the End Islands, which is something I'm working on a lot, I come down here to this village, I work on this, I get some emeralds, which I can trade for what I want. I make this slow villager project happen, and yeah, if you want to see how this village is recovering from fascism, it's something I'm slowly working on in the background, because having things in the foreground and things in the background is an important part of life. And just remember, when the foreground seems like it's everything, that it's not everything. Because that's why we call it the foreground. Because there's 4 of them. That is facts. That is that is how language works. Do not try to fact check that one. But I assure you it's totally true. And not just some words I made up on the spot. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.